Well, earlier this week, we celebrated National Medal of Honor Day, a very special honor for the elite class of heroes. More than 40 million people have served in the U.S. military, but very few, a tiny fraction of a fraction, have ever had the Medal of Honor. ABC's Danny New has the details on this museum that just opened yesterday in North Texas, telling their stories.
America owes you a debt of gratitude, son.
You may remember in Forrest Gump when Forrest is awarded America's highest military decoration on the battlefield, the Medal of Honor. Well, today, on National Medal of Honor Day, a museum officially opens in Arlington, Texas to honor the fewer than 4,000 heroes who have received this distinction in real life.
We're very proud to honor them in this new museum.
Museum President Chris Cassidy here is a retired astronaut who served in the Navy until 2021, when he says he hung up his uniform and immediately joined this project.
The President of the United States meets so many extraordinary individuals.
Right around that time, a bipartisan effort, including former presidents, began to fundraise to open this national institution that could tell the stories of those who have received this medal awarded by Congress and presented by the president. Now, if you've ever received one...
That was one of those moments where I don't remember a whole lot. It was a big whirlwind.
Retired Army Staff Sergeant Clint Romeshay received his Medal of Honor from President Obama in 2013, 4 years after saving many of his comrades' lives during an ambush in Afghanistan.
You're looking at someone who understands the meaning of sacrifice.
Groundbreaking for the museum began in 2022 with President George W. Bush in attendance. Then began the construction of the 4 pillars holding it up in honor of the 4 military branches that have received the medal. As it opens today, the museum spans more than 100,000 square feet, but this section right here is the part that Chris says gives him chills. It's a 360-degree theater honoring the 61 Medal of Honor recipients who are still alive today.
They, in that circumstances, took an unbelievable action.
All veterans have free admission at the museum this whole first week. And by the way, the first Medals of Honor were presented during the Civil War in 1863. In New York, for ABC News, I'm Danny New.
I get the honor to interview a lot of people in this career. It's a great honor. But one of the greatest was me getting to sit down one-on-one with retired Army Sergeant Clint Romeshay, who you just heard from a little bit right there. We sat down and had an in-depth conversation about what this, not the medal, but what this museum means to him, what it means to his kids, because they had no idea what was going on, right? And what his kids really think about Dad. Take a listen.
You know, it's great to see this come together here in Arlington, Texas, and have the museum not just sharing my story, but all the recipients' story, to highlight what that extraordinary service to country looks like, but really to highlight that just ordinary individuals being put in situations and doing extraordinary things. Every American is capable of that. Deep down in our soul, that's what's in our DNA. When things get tough, Americans always rise to the occasion. And the museum highlights that with all the stories of the 3,600 recipients of the Medal of Honor, the 61 living. We'll rotate through, like, you gotta come and see and be part of this experience.
You talk about every American has this in them, but I can't imagine your situation. We don't have time for the whole thing, but in Afghanistan in 2009, surrounded, ambushed on all 4 sides, badly wounded, and yet you still fought to keep your outpost with your soldiers. How did you keep your cool, though, in the moment where especially you were hit by an RPG, right?
You know, it's one of those situations where you never think you'll be in until you find yourself in it. And the one thing with military service is you never do anything alone. You always have your battle buddies to your left and right. That day, I had 52 other great Americans right alongside me. 8 of them gave up their lives so I could come home. And like I said, everything I did that day, I wasn't thinking about getting hurt or dying, or it was what was happening to everybody else. And it's weird to kind of put it in this concept. You look at how the odds were stacked against us. Taliban had 400 fighters, overran our perimeter. You know, and we came out on top that day because the enemy hated us and they just wanted to kill us because they hate what we stand for. We didn't fight back because we hated them. We loved each other so much, and it was that motivational love for your brothers to your left and right that helped us be triumphant that day.
I would love to talk more about your story, but we have to talk about this building right here. And you have kids, I know. Do your kids have any idea what you did? Because before they were born, you're going to bring them in now. Do they have any idea what Dad was about?
You know, as they're getting older, they're starting to realize it a little more. But still, at the end of the day, Dad's still the guy that takes out the trash and shovels the snow, helps them with homework. And it's really a blessing to see that, you know, they understand what I did, but they also humble you and tease me. It's like, why do people want your autograph? Don't they know your handwriting is horrible, Dad? So it's always a blessing to have your kids kind of bring you and ground you back to earth. But to be able to walk through these halls and show them this amazing museum, I want to share everybody else's story, and I hope they get to see those.
Talk a little bit about the actual museum itself. We're seeing pictures right now. It's gorgeous, but you said how many people's stories are in this museum?
They've got right now about 300 on display that will be rotated out kind of as time goes by. It's really interesting how interactive things are and how you feel, you know, it come to life, and you feel the weight of the sacrifice, and you see all those just simple little things that you didn't think. You know, my FFA jacket is hanging up here. You know, I hadn't seen that thing in years, but for me growing up, that was a big part of my life, growing up ranching and farming. Be able to show the next generation, look, we come from all different walks of life. The design of this thing, how it's setting on these 5 pillars for each branch of service, the weight that it has to bear really symbolizes what we're doing in this country, and gives a nod back to all those men and women that have worn that uniform, and every American that's being more of a citizen, giving back to their country and not taking from it.
And a special thank you again to Medal of Honor recipient Clint Romeshay, retired sergeant in the U.S. Army. And again, this is in Arlington. The National Medal of Honor Museum opened yesterday. Get on up there and take a look. It looks absolutely incredible.